Somebody just told me that they're terrified of dying, and there are actually things that can help with this.
Hey y'all. So today I wanted to come to you guys and talk to you guys about the fear of death. It is something that I myself have struggled with. And I, being a kid from LA, it's all around us, but you don't realize how much it really gets to you. Like when you're growing up, it's kind of normal. I hate to say it that way, but it becomes a normal occurrence here. And you get older and you're starting to think like, wow, there's people that didn't make it to a certain age. There's people that should still be here. You know what I mean? Like my husband, the way that my husband grew up, he grew up in a certain lifestyle. And literally, I would say about 70% of the people that he grew up with are no longer here. They didn't even make it to 30. And we're 34. And there's a lot of people that haven't made it to 35. You know what I mean? Um, One of the things that I noticed that he struggles with a lot is survivor's guilt. Like I always tell him, the only way that we can pay our now ancestors back is just by living, living and appreciating life. But it's hard, sometimes. One of the things that's been happening to me lately is my grandfather and one of my favorite aunties has been on my mind really heavy. My auntie's death anniversary was actually 2 days ago, and my grandfather's birthday is coming up on Halloween. I apologize for the backup noise. There's some construction being done on our pool area, so hopefully I can edit it out, but if not, I do apologize in advance for that extra noise. So the fear of death is called thanatophobia, and it's considered an intense fear of death or the dying process. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into these couple of TikToks, and then once we're done with those, then I'll get back to you guys at the end with my own 2 cents, per usual.
Hi, I'm Jeremy. I'm a deep skeptic, also a pastor. So, this is one of the core purposes of spiritual beliefs. So, let's talk about the afterlife. First off, there's nothing universal. When it comes to the afterlife, there's no universal belief amongst all of religion or anything like that. However, most religions believe in some sort of permanence to the soul or the spirit or existence or consciousness or however they label it. For some, it's reincarnation, which Christians actually can't completely reject because, hello, the resurrection, but, whatever. And then there's those of us for whom Christian is maybe the closest word to describe what we believe, where the Bible is maybe your primary or most familiar sacred text. Well, let's dig into it. So back in the time of Jesus, like when Jesus was around, there was a raging debate about the permanence of the soul and about the afterlife. There were some people who believed at that time that nothing existed, that you died and it was sort of annihilationism, right? You died and that was it. You were done. Life was over. But when you read Jesus does not side with those people. If there's one thing that it feels like Jesus is clear on, it's that there is some sort of afterlife, some sort of permanence to existence. Like I said before, the majority view of world religions that there is something permanent that continues on. But let's just be clear, Jesus's teachings on the subject are all over the place. Like, he uses all kinds of different references and metaphors. Like one of his teachings uses the Greek story of Hades, right? That it actually uses the word Hades, and it talks about an afterlife that has multiple different expressions for different people. Like it's exactly what you learned in high school about the Greek afterlife. And then he also uses this term, eternal life, right? So, there's that classic verse of John 3:16, for God so loved the world that God gave his only son, that whoever believes in God's son will inherit eternal life. That's one of the places that most people know. But what's really important, like, is to read that verse in context, because the next verse, it says that God didn't send Jesus into the world to condemn the world, but to like give them eternal life. So that's like really important for people who want to, like, in my comments probably on this video, condemn people and judge people and say they're going to hell and all of that. That verse is really clear. God did not send Jesus, to condemn people. That was not the goal of Jesus. The goal of Jesus was eternal life for everybody. But that word eternal life is really interesting. Another place that's sort of related to the eternal life term is John 10:10, where it says that Jesus came that we might have life and have it to the full. That's a really important verse as well for understanding this word eternal life. So in Greek, there are actually a couple of words that in English are generally just translated as the word life. One of them is the word bios, and that's like living and not dying, right? What happens when you are breathing and then when you are not breathing, right? It's that part of our English definition for the word life. But then there's this other word called Zoe. And Zoe is sort of the quality of life. It is the idea of having a really good life. And the good life is the life that we want, a life of connection, a life of rewarding work, a life of relative comfort and prosperity and success and all of those kind of things. That's the sort of essence of the word Zoe. And that's the word that's used in both that John 3:16, that Jesus came to give us Zoe, and it's sort of being captured, the essence of it is being captured in that John 10:10 passage, where it says that Jesus came to give us life and life to the full. That, like, life to the full, that's the Zoe-ness of that. Not just alive and not dead, but like this quality of a life. And the idea of eternal life, right, is like that life going beyond here and going into eternity in some sort of existence that happens and continues forth even after we die. I think it's the concept that people are trying to think of when they use the word heaven, and people will say that they'll quote like from Revelation 21 and say, oh, it has streets of gold, or in John 14 that it has mansions, which John 14 is a really interesting passage that has nothing to do with mansions in the afterlife, but whatever. All of those terms, all of those passages are deeply metaphorical and ultimately are displaying the inadequacy of human language to express what is beyond our existence, right? It's just trying to use finite language to express boundless goodness, right? The good life, the thing that you want and desire. Then the question is there punishment? And when you look at the Bible from the beginning to the end, and you look at the way the cultures understood the afterlife and all of that kind of stuff, it's inconclusive. Because there was times when there was this idea of annihilation. There was times where it was this idea of like, well, everybody goes and experiences this same afterlife, and it's kind of slightly different for different people. And then there was this time where they were being persecuted, and the question was like, okay, what about all this evil that's going on? And these people seem to, in this life, just prosper from it. Shouldn't they experience some consequence? And so some people thought that consequence was going to be in the afterlife. And then if you continue on past the Bible into like Christian church history, for a long time there was this idea that people would continue to be able to choose to follow God even after they died. That was a really common belief, and so that it's inconclusive. So maybe, but when you look at it on the whole, there's a lot more about blessing and goodness and a good life and a good afterlife and all of that than these handful of verses on punishment. I'll do a whole video about that. When it comes to the afterlife, though, I think it really comes down to what this one rabbi responded he was asked, what do Jews believe about the afterlife? And he thought about it for a second, and he said, I think what we believe is that if God wanted us to spend a lot of time thinking about it, God would have told us a whole lot more about it. And so we need to spend most of our time working on making this life and this earth a better place, and we'll figure out the afterlife when we get there.
I am not afraid of death. So whenever people say, you're going to die alone with your cats, I'm like, I'm not afraid of death. Now, does that mean that I'm ready to die? No, I don't want to die. I want to be here as long as possible. As long as I'm in good health and I can take care of myself and I won't be suffering in some way. But if it was ever a situation where I knew I was going to be suffering, I knew my quality of life was going to be shot to hell and so on and so forth, you could take me out the game, my G, right? That's just how I feel about it. Now, when people threaten or try to threaten me with dying alone, I'm like, you're not threatened. I don't care about dying alone. I'll give you guys a quick little story. In 2016, I was working at a nursing home third shift. And usually when I work third shift, I would go to sleep around like 5 or 6 because I would have to be to work at 10. So I give me a couple hours in. I woke up in the middle of my nap and I was feeling terrible. My head was killing me. My stomach was killing me. And normally in situations like that, I would take a Tylenol and drink plenty of water and then go back to sleep. And when I wake up, I feel better. This particular day, I didn't have a Tylenol. So I had an 800 milligram ibuprofen that I cut in half and took and drank plenty of water. So I took 400 milligrams and I went to sleep. And maybe an hour or so later, I woke up and I felt 20 times worse. So I knew something was wrong. And I got in my car and I drove myself to the emergency room. When I got there, they ran on my test. They took my blood pressure, checked my O2, blah, blah, blah. They said, oh my God, you are severely dehydrated. I'm like, what? I didn't know I was. I didn't feel like it. That was a shock to me. They said your kidneys are in like renal failure, acute renal failure, because you're that dehydrated. That's why you're in so much pain. I said, what? Sorry, but we're going to have to keep you here. We got to get your creatinine levels back to normal, and we have to get you hydrated. I was fighting them. Like, dude, I got to go to work. Like, I got to go to work. I got bills to pay. I can't stay here. It took like maybe 7 or 8 people to come in to get me to stay. Like, they're like, if you leave, you're not going to be hydrated. You're probably going to die, right? So I got admitted, and I was in there for 5 days. I went in there on a Monday, and I got out on a Friday. The entire time that I was there, nobody knew I was there. Not a friend, not family members, nobody. Why? Simple. I don't like being bothered with people. I live in a bubble, and I am I'm introverted, right? I can't stand being around people. The thought of someone surrounding my deathbed as I'm dying creeps me out. Like, to me, death should just be like a private moment. I don't know how to explain that, and I know most people would not agree because most people are codependent. Most people are terrified of dying alone, let alone just dying in general. People are terrified of that. So I know a lot of y'all won't understand it, but I feel like I would want to die in peace. That's just me. I don't want people watching me. It's creepy and weird, right? You know how like when you close your curtains and you're in the hospital and there's always like this little gap, few inches of gap between the curtain and the wall? I literally pushed the curtain up against the wall and like set stuff on the curtain so that you couldn't even see through the gap. That's how much I didn't want to be bothered. Like, oh my God. Every time they came in there to take an ultrasound and see like what was going on with my bladder and checking my levels and whatever, I'm like, dude, please leave me alone. Like, oh my God, I was so cranky. And I was in healthcare, and I have the presence of mind to understand how often they have to come in and check on you, and I know all that. And I'm telling you, I was so annoyed because people were bothering me. But I did have a couple of cool nurses, and they were nice, and you know, they made it better for me, right? But oh my God, right? So that's just an example of like how I don't want to be bothered with people, right? And make no mistake, I love my life and I don't want to die. I'm just not afraid of it. And like, for an example, I'll give you guys an example. Cancer runs through my family. So let's say I ended up with some kind of cancer. I'm not fighting cancer with chemotherapy or radiation. If I can't fight that cancer naturally, it's my time to go. I don't care where I'm at in my life. I don't care how much money I got or how successful I am. I don't care how I feel. I don't care about none of that. If I can't fight it naturally, and I'm still going to end up with, I'm not taking chemo. I'm just not. Because the one thing I know about that is that makes you feel worse before you still most likely die anyways. Are there people who survive chemotherapy radiation? Yes. Usually for a few years and the cancer comes back. In most cases. I'm just saying. For most people, right? I watched my mother go through that, right? If I got 6 months to live, I'm not about to spend that 6 months down and out on chemotherapy or radiation, sick, bedridden, no energy, looking terrible, feeling terrible, right? If that's going to be my end, if I'm going to be here on this earth suffering in any way, physically in pain, no quality of life, things of that nature, take me out the game. That is how I feel. Now, that's not the case in my life. I love my life. And like I say all the time, I want to live a long time, right? But not under those circumstances where I'm not in a healthy state. So no, I'm not afraid of death in that way, like at all. Now, don't get me wrong. If somebody came in here guns blazing, I'm finna be ducking and dodging because I ain't trying to get hit because I want to live. But quality of life is very important to me. And if I don't have that, if I don't have my health, I have nothing. There is no point. And death is inevitable, right? It's gonna happen no matter what. Like, it doesn't matter if you agree with it, if you think it's fair or not, if you don't like it, doesn't matter. Death is inevitable. So to me, there's no reason to like fear it, if that makes sense. How many of you guys feel the same way? How many of you guys are like, as long as I have quality of life, I'm good. If not, you can take me out. How many of you guys fear dying alone? I just don't. I prefer to die alone. Like I said, people surrounding me while I'm like literally taking these last breaths of this intimate moment is just weird. And I know for a fact that that's how I would feel in the future, because that's how I felt in the past. Like, people say, you don't really know a situation until you're in it. Well, I was in it. I almost died, and I purposely chose not to call people. Because in real life, 99% of the time, you're just going to get the call. Do you know what I'm saying? When you find out somebody died, somebody called you to tell you, in most cases. So my sister is my emergency contact. She just would have got the call. That's how it is for all of us. You know what I mean? Maybe I would have robbed them of the chance to say goodbye, but we are all robbed of that in most cases because we just get the call when it's too late. So anyway, leave your comments below. This is a little bit longer than I wanted it to be. Leave your comments below. I want to know how many of you guys feel the same way. I'll catch you guys in the next one.
I think a lot of people are afraid of the idea of not existing at all after we die. So here are a couple things that are comforting to me personally. I don't know the truth any more than anybody else, but these things give me a little comfort. One is that if we do die and there's truly nothing else, you will never have to go through the experience of finding that out. If we die and there's nothing, then there's nothing. You will never have the terror of realizing that that's what's happening. The other is the idea that the darkness and nothingness after death, if that's what happens, is identical to the darkness and nothingness before birth. We look at one with terror and the other one with pretty much neutrality, I think. That didn't come from me. That's, I think, actually a Nietzsche thing, but I read about it in Yalom. Lastly, I find a lot of comfort in science, in things like the Eulogy from a Physicist. If you haven't ever heard or read that, I suggest you look it up. It talks about the conservation of energy and what that kind of means for us after death. Also things like quantum entanglement really give me a lot of peace and comfort thinking about death and not being so afraid.
Story time about the time that I asked God to help me with my fear of death, and he did. So it all started off when I was reading Revelations, and I got really scared because I do consider myself a saved person, but I was just like, I'm so attached to this body that I live in. I don't want to die. So I asked God, I know you're so real. I know you're so powerful. I need you to come help me with this acceptance because I want to go with you. So about 2 days later, I'm at my friend's house and I go to sleep. I'm listening to the Bible on YouTube and I fall asleep. So that's when I had a dream that I got in a car wreck. I got in a car wreck and my car flipped over twice and ended up on its back. When it ended up on its back, my neck broke like this. My neck broke and I essentially died. And the friend that I was in a car with, we get transported to a beach of some sort. And all I know is the sun is setting in the background and I see my friend walking on water into the sun. And I'm just standing there watching her like. The next thing I know, I get transported to the clouds and I'm on my knees in heaven. I have my hands together, my head bowed, and all I know is Jesus is standing in front of me with 2 angels on his side. The clouds was just as big as you could imagine, bigger than I can imagine. There was colors flying all around him. It was colors I've never ever seen before, colors that I can't even describe to you. And I was just thanking him for everything, thanking him for letting me see this beautiful place, thanking him that I'm here, thanking him for every single piece of every single thing. And my voice was so loud. I knew my voice was so loud because it was like an empty heaven. And I was just so, my voice was filling up the entire heavens. It sounded as if, I would always describe it like my voice was just a thunder just through the heavens. Like you could just hear me from this side to that side. So as I'm thanking him and thanking him and thanking him over and over and over and over and over again, I realized my body is still asleep. I started thinking, my body's still asleep in my friend's house. I need to go back. I need to go back because my voice is probably that loud in my body at home. I need to go back. I need to wake up and stop screaming because if not, somebody's gonna come stop me because I'm screaming in these people's house. So that's when I thank him again and then I go back. So once I get back, I wake up. And that's when I realized I don't have to be scared of death because I'm going to heaven. God came to me and he showed me a piece of heaven that I just could be eternally grateful for. So with that, he's just showing me that you don't have nothing to worry about. You're going to heaven. You don't have to be scared to die. You won't even notice that you've died because you're going to be with me.
Why you should not fear death. Every day on our planet, people are born and people die. Within our own bodies, billions of cells die every day and are reborn. Everything has been created. There is no more creation. Everything that was, is, and ever will be already exists right now. Before you were born, you existed in your mother's womb 9 months prior to that, and in your parents and in your grandparents' genes before that. Therefore, your birth was not bringing something from no existence into existence. It was a continuation. And when we die, we do not die and become nothing. The law of thermodynamics states this. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed, can only be transformed. Therefore, when we die, we do not die. We continue. You will continue in your children, your grandchildren, and in everything around you. You are part of this cosmos. You will always remain part of this cosmos. I hope this helps someone out there. Feel free to like and share and follow me. Thank you. Have a great day.
I found that when I feared death, I came closer to death than ever before. They prepare us mentally to focus on dying, prepare our will for when we die, prepare this burial option for when we die, or when I die I want to be buried or I want to be burnt to ashes and spread over the water. Why are we so focused on the death when really we're supposed to be focused on the life? The fact that life is, we all have multiple chances, but why leave life in ignorance? Why leave life in hate? Why leave the life that we are granted in a wrong matter? Why leave without enlightening ourselves, our souls that are already enlightened souls, of course, but awakening our souls? Why not focus upon the journey that we were sent here to accomplish? If you believe that we were sent here to simply add more hate to such a hateful and deceitful matrix that they put us upon, then you are sadly mistaken. Love is the highest vibration. Focusing upon death and the act of dying is only lowering your vibration of your soul. But love is the highest vibration, so why not focus on the things that come along with love? Love and peace and tranquility, blessings upon blessings. There is so much that we are granted, so many blessings, so much gratitude that we should have for this blessing of life. Not focusing on when we're going to die or wanting to die or lowering our vibration into that death mindset, because there's no need to be afraid of death. When we die, all that's dying is the physical body. The soul goes on forever. So live in love. Enjoy the blessings and the love that is in life. Yes, you might find yourself falling back into where they programmed us to be, but that's not what you focus upon. You will have awareness over those thoughts and realize that those thoughts are not you. You are not your thoughts. Oh, and look at the sun. Life is a blessing. And you are strong enough to live your life for yourself and live a life in love. Because the least you could do is leave this earth with a positive footprint.
So, one of the things that has helped me a lot. There's a number of things that I've done, but one of the things that has helped me a lot is there are postmortem groups on Facebook. Now, this may be a little morbid for some of y'all, so you do what works for you. But I happen to be one of those people that if I'm exposed to something enough, it's not so overwhelming or scary or intimidating anymore. And so what I've noticed in these groups is a lot of them are able to talk about their family members. They're able to talk about the grievances that they had, whether it was with the dying process or the mortuary or how the body was prepared. Or some people want to share, their child in their last stages, or they want to share their husband or their father, and they want to share those pictures that aren't necessarily, appropriate for most of social media. Right. And it's helped me just kind of remind me that, hey, you're not the only person that's going through this. We all know that death is a part of life, right? One of the videos that I posted in here, they spoke about how, a lot of us, the fear of death is it being finite, right? And I love that one of the therapists in the video said that if it is finite, you won't know. Like once you go, you won't know. And I think that for myself, what caused the spiral for me was when my childhood best friend passed away. I think that's when it first kind of hit me. And then I went through like a dark night of the soul when I lost my cousin, one of my favorite cousins, because she's a twin, but one of my favorite cousins. And I'm a year older than the set of twins, right? And I think that's when I really started to just freak out about the whole thing. I was wondering, like, was she in pain? She had a brain tumor that ruptured and it caused swelling in her brain, and she ended up being brain dead, and that's how she passed away. And I just always, my hope for all of my family members when they pass is that they don't experience any pain on the way out. Another thing that I do a lot is I watch a lot of near-death experiences. My father, when I was in my mother's womb, my mom was about 8 months pregnant with me. Someone pretty much tried to attack her, and my dad came out to help my mom, and he was shot. And my dad is able to recount to me what happened. And he's like, I've ran these stories past my mom, and my mom was like, that's crazy that he knows these things because he was in a coma, or, he was in surgery. Like he can detail to you the surgery and what it looked like and how it felt. And my father's had about 3 near-death experiences. It was the one when he got shot. There was another one when I think I was about 8 or 9, and he got in a really bad quad accident, and he cracked his head open, and it was a hot mess. And then the last one was during COVID. He was one of those people that COVID almost tried to take out, and he still deals with kidney issues from that to this day. And so I know that they are real. I definitely do believe in them. I am a believer that once we leave our bodies, that life doesn't end there. But I think for me, it's the fear of the unknown. I think the fear of the unknown is what gets to me the most. And what I've tried to do is just remind myself that when I'm having those feelings, to be grateful that I am here to have those feelings and acknowledge that, hey, you're still breathing, and being happy for the things that I do have. Right. And I always remind myself that, hey, there's a number of people that aren't here, and I have to live for them. The best way that I can honor them is to live. I've had friends that have unalived themselves. I've had friends that were taken out. I've had friends that have passed away from illnesses. And I think it's their passings that have taken the biggest toll on me, like I said, because these people were or are or was my age. it's a little different with the older folks because, like, for instance, with my grandfather was 71 when he passed away, which is pretty young. However, I watched him enjoy life up until he got sick. Like, he loved to fish. He retired early. He had so many accomplishments under his belt. And when he passed away, there were so many people at his funeral that showed out for him and they loved him. I still struggle sometimes with, especially like my best friend, because she was so young. Like, she literally passed away a week before my 21st birthday. And I was there. She passed away of cancer, and I was there through the entire process. I was there when she found out. I was there through all of it. And I just felt like God took her from me. It was the same thing with my cousin Lauren. I felt like God took Lauren from me because Lauren literally passed away. She was here to tell my daughter happy birthday, which was her first birthday. And then 7 days later, she was gone. And she passed away some months before their 30th birthday. And it's just something that, we all know that none of us make it out of here alive. But I really believe that for myself, it is the fear of the unknown. Definitely. It's like when your family members are struggling, you don't want them to struggle. So when they do decide to let go, or they do decide to go back home, is what I call it, while it still hurts, I can understand it more. But like when children are harmed and they're no longer here, or when women are abused and they're no longer here, or, gang activity and things like that, those things hit me the most because it's just like, I have so many questions. And, the old people say that you're not supposed to question God, but me and God be talking because God, this hurts. I need to understand. And I guess it is one of those things that's not meant to be understood, but I think that's the part that gives the majority of us anxiety, right? I also am not a person that would want to live forever because I don't want to. I always think of like the vampire movies and stuff, right? Like True Blood, how like Bill literally had so many families and knew all these people, and then he had to deal with them all leaving and dying, right? And so you don't want that. And then I also, you see like some of these older people and they're like 112 and they're like emaciated and their eyeballs are already sunken in. It's things like that. So I guess it's very much like a trivial thing. But it is something that I think about a few times a week. It definitely is. And so I felt like the best way that I could deal with this myself and validate it for you all is to bring it up and talk about it and get you guys' 2 cents. I want to know how you guys cope with it. Is this something that you guys are afraid of? Is it something that you're not afraid of? I think for me too, like I always ask God, like, God, I know obviously you're going to take me, and I obviously don't know, the date or the time. But I always ask that God, just please, like, I want to be here to see my children grow up. I want to be here for my grandbabies. I want to be here for my great grandbabies, maybe even my great great grandbabies. But I definitely want to be here. I want to be alive and well because I don't want to be a burden on any of my family members or my children or anything of the sort in the meantime. But it's definitely something that is heavy on my head. So you guys get in the comments and you let me know, you guys' 2 cents on the matter. I would love to hear about how you all deal with it. I would love to hear, if this is something that resonates with you all as well. Are you afraid? Are you not afraid? If you're not afraid, why? My dad tells me that he's not afraid because he's been there already and there's nothing to be afraid of. But I always say, well, you've been there. So that's why I always say, like, it is definitely the fear of the unknown for me. But as always, I appreciate you guys for watching, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.